log, stardate 7403.6.
Are you pretending to do a captain's log?
I saw that, but I don't believe it.
A Vendorian doctor.
Shapeshifter? Boo. Look, I can set you up with somebody great on the Cerritos. There's that Philosian and Tactical. She seems like a nice plant person.
Intelligent plants?
Orion's little game of neutrality and piracy is over.
For your information, many Orions haven't been pirates for over 5 years!
Time to take this puppy off its leash! Warp me!
Welcome to Drawn to Trek. We are back to talk about Season 2, Episode 3.
Woo!
We'll always have Tom Paris. And I'm here with my lovely co-host, Jessie Gender, who is
I'm
back
here.
from being
I'm alive.
ill.
I'm not dead. Huzzah! I'll take it.
Yay! That's it. Well, and that's a good, that kind of references what's happening this week, too.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it. And just back from the dead, just with no explanation.
Exactly.
Except for my explanation is 2 trips to the urgent care and overcoming a severe sinus infection. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, you jokingly said that I gave you the sinus infection to begin with because I had that before.
Yeah.
So that's why we are actually delayed on all of our recordings. Even though we have screeners, which just allows us to get ahead, we're not ahead.
We're just barely scraping by.
Yeah. This is like 4 hours before the episode comes out at this point.
Yeah. We're ahead of the game a little bit, I guess. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, I do have to admit, like, the recording that we did last week for all the Easter eggs, which I'm still editing, that was 2 hours worth of Easter eggs. So it felt like everything that happened last week encompasses like a month worth of stuff.
Exactly. No, I mean, I loved just to sort of give viewers or listeners, I should say, the recap since I wasn't on last week's episode because I was sick.
Right.
I really loved last week's episode, but oh my gosh, so many Easter eggs. It was a poker. I'm glad that I don't do the Easter egg game because I would have been there forever. I did not. You like show me the images that you made, and I was like, I do not envy you this task, but it was cool. It was cool. My favorite was we got to see the little game visor, the thing that gave everyone their orgasms over in the episode.
Yes.
In the game, that was my personal favorite.
In fact, I believe the time that you went and saw Night Shift, the same person who wrote that episode was there.
Oh, shit. Oh, I didn't know that. I love that episode. It's just, that's one of those, like, it's a good episode, but it's so weird.
He wrote it because he was obsessed with Tetris. And he wanted something that, like, talked about that obsession about video games. And I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
He also wrote
Tetris. Wait. Sorry, now that I'm thinking about, what is he doing with Tetris? Is he like? Every time clearing those blocks. Oh yeah.
I think there's like taking the story and then expanding it and using fiction.
No, we all know that what writers put on the screen is their literal thoughts and desires. We can't separate the two.
Well, he also wrote Menage a Troy.
I mean, there we go. There we go. It just proves it.
But the reason I met him was because he wrote the last episode of the animated series. Oh, shoot. The Counterclock Incident.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a classic one. Introduction of Robert
He
April.
had the... yes, exactly. Yeah.
And his wife that no one remembers.
It's funny because his name, the writer is Fred Bronson. Mm-hmm. And I was joking, it's like he had a pen name because when he wrote the episode, he worked for NBC and they didn't want any kind of feeling of impropriety. So he changed his name to like John Culver. So in my brain, I think Culver and Bronson, which are both like, Bronson Canyon, Culver City. And so I constantly have to pause and there's like this, I don't remember your name because I cannot unerase the, But Fred, he was so excited when he heard about Enterprise because he believed, the first Enterprise, he thought it was going to be about Robert April.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, and then he was like, no. So
now he's got
really
Strange New...
we see Robert April in Strange New Worlds, yes. Somewhere. I hope we see him somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you might actually see him on Strange New Worlds. They might pop in.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, he could be around. Yeah. So that's that was kind of fun. Hey, Aaron from the future here. I cut myself off. Basically, I was going to mention that Sarah April, Robert April's wife, in the show is called Mrs. April. Fred said, had that been made today, she would have got her proper due and been called Dr. April. Okay, back to the past. But we did discover a new Easter egg just before, like, yesterday. I'm wrapping them up. I'm like, I put like a wall. I'm like, no, if we find more,
It's done.
I'll tell you later.
It's done.
Yeah. There is something that was staring me in the face the entire time. Is yellowish box. It's a stasis box from the Slaver weapon from the animated series.
Oh my god. The
I'm just
animators
like,
the animators did their job. They earned their keep on that one. In fact,
Yes.
on my video review of the episode over on my channel, one of the animators was in the comments and said that they were really excited that I loved the Easter eggs and they had fun doing that. So it's like, yeah, that's awesome. That's really
good.
cool. Yeah, they definitely did their money's worth. They did a really great job.
I think we've topped out so far at like 65. So it's crazy.
I mean, if they had been smart, they would have
And that's
stopped
just
at
in that
47.
room.
If they would have stopped at 47, if they were smart.
Yeah. I actually, the first draft that I did stopped at 47. Giant Spock was 47.
That's perfect.
And then we're just like, oh wait, then we just found tons of them. So yeah. And a little something else related to the animated series really quickly. This morning, Bill from the network sent me this image that he said like his wife was watching a preview for this upcoming episode of Evil on CBS. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, look, there's an animated series thing. They're going to like a monastery where nobody has talked for like 100 years. Mm-hmm. And so they pull out their phone to like text instead of, talking. And the phone doesn't have signal or it doesn't work or something, which is weird. So they bring out these like, those little slates that you have when you're a kid that you write on and then you peel back. Yeah. So they brought out these ones and they had like, they're all like toy. One was Casper the Friendly Ghost or whatever. And the last one was Star Trek, the animated series.
Oh, shoot.
So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But then my brain stopped and like, it said copyright 1989. I'm like, it wasn't called the animated series then. And then I looked at the graphic and realized it's the graphic I created for CBS All Access.
Oh,
it is literally my design. Like at the top of the page, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's mine.
You're an evil.
So
You're
weird.
evil. You're evil, Aaron.
Yes,
You're evil.
yes, I am evil.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Like I want to know what I have to do to get the prop.
Yeah,
I want that.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So, yeah. Because somebody's like, well, if it wasn't called Star Trek the Animated Series in 1989, what was it called? I'm like, it was called Star Trek, The Animated Adventures of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek.
A little bit of a mouthful.
It's a palindrome. It's like it's a warp bubble that collapses in on itself.
It's a time loop. It's a time loop.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of time, I know that we are both pressed for it, so let's dive right into the review of We Will Always Have Tom Paris, which I love that title.
Yeah, it's a great title. Nice reference to Star Trek: The Next Generation as well, and then obviously playing in Tom Paris. Great. Yeah, it's a great one.
Yes,
one of the few good first season, like legitimately good first season episodes of Next Generation.
Yeah,
like
there's some clunkers.
Like early Next Gen is interesting. It's like it's bad in an interesting way, not like a boring way, like Star Trek Voyager season one. But it's certainly not. It's
best. In a what is new Star Trek going to be like kind of way.
Yeah,
like you're not quite sure. Like you get like vibes of those shows that would be on at 5:00 on a Saturday that were time tracks and all those different kind of syndicated cheap sci-fi shows or whatever. Superboy.
Exactly.
Just like, so it all kind of fell in there, and then it could have stayed there if they had not kind of course corrected.
Yeah. Anyways, we should talk about the episode at hand.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about first? I'm assuming we're going to just split this up by storyline because there's 3 different storylines.
Yeah, why don't we take it by storylines? Why don't we take the maybe the largest one first with Mariner and Tendi?
Cool.
Because that's something we actually taled about because we were so like, why don't we see Marion? Great.
Yeah.
Maid Marion. Why don't we see Mariner and Tendi together doing a mission and pairing people off differently? And then it happened.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, they even had the conversation
that we had practically.
Yeah. They're just like Mariner and Tendi
weird.
Literally have this conversation. We're like, we totally haven't hung out. It's like, wait, no, we must have. No, we didn't. It just felt like the writers being like, oh, we're gonna address this criticism head on. But I liked that. I loved that because it actually was the writers taking the criticism from season 1 that I know I and a bunch of other people had, and actually making it not just addressing it, but like making it a character thing. Because this whole arc of this storyline is Mariner and Tendi are friends, but they don't really know each other all that well. And so I really like that it was sort of like a meta commentary on like addressing the criticisms of their own writing, but actually making it a character thing as well. Like I thought that was just so smart and cool.
I mean, you don't know my first name, so.
Is it Arun? Arun.
Yeah, yes. It's Areen.
Arun?
You can ask somebody like a Starbucks, and I got AIROEN once. I'm like, what is that? Or Arion or something like that.
My favorite one my favorite that I've ever got was oh god, why am I blanking on his name? The guy who made the movie The Room. Mm-hmm. The like really bad movie.
Tommy Wiseau.
Tommy Wiseau. I went to a screening of The Room in L.A. Tommy Wiseau was there, and I got a copy of the DVD signed by him, and I went up to him and said, "Oh, sign it over to Jesse." I still have the DVD. He spelled Jesse with a Y, and I don't know. It's like Jayusi, and I'm like, I don't know how he got there, but that's my favorite misspelling I ever got in my life. But anyways,
that's great. Yes, but so we basically learned that like they I love that their journey. Well, we'll explain what they're doing. They basically Dr. T'Ana, who appears to be in like heat, possibly,
or
something.
Yeah, she needs She needs something delivered for just to picked up for her, and so Tendi, who's sort of like in this place, like I'm eager to please. Mm-hmm. I want to try and actually work on promoting myself, get people to see me. She volunteers for the mission.
And she just doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just do it.
And volunteers for the mission, and so she goes with Mariner because they haven't like hung out together, and so they go to girls trip, a lot of fun. So they go to a planet it was very like Free Cloud-esque, like Stardust City-esque. It wasn't that.
Yes, it wasn't, but there are some similar things. Like, so I actually put these are. I won't go over the tons of Easter eggs.
Which, by the way, Free Cloud, Stardust City being the casino planet that they visit in Star Trek Picard.
Qualar 2, I think, is where they were at.
Yeah.
So they had the Zebulon sisters, a neon sign. We had Quarks. Vic Fontaine's, and my favorite thing was like just as it's zooming in, you just catch a corner of it. You see a person with a woman with multiple arms playing a piano, and that is from Unification Part 2, where they go into this bar and there's a woman named Amari, who's a female musician who played the piano. She sang the Klingon opera that Worf sang along with and everything like that. So apparently she's become somewhat famous, and she has at least a neon sign.
And
that scene had something that I love.
If you have a neon sign, you know you're famous.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least in Star Trek, at least. My favorite little bit about that is that they have a sweep edit, which is something that you do in improv too. Sometimes where somebody walks across the screen of the stage and sort of pulls and it just wipes out. So they did this person like walking by and it wiped into the next scene, which I thought was visually really nice.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. And then we also get Klingon acid punk during this, which is awesome. And like I totally want I want a whole thing of that, though. I don't know if you know her. There's a person named Klingon Pop Warrior who's she's on Twitter, and she has her own music where she like sings pop songs but in Klingon. Does really great stuff. She did voiceover for one of my videos, and she's absolutely wonderful. I'd highly recommend checking her out. And
That's fantastic.
Music is wonderful. She's actually sang with Mary Chieffo once. So
I was gonna say, didn't Mary just do like a kind of a rock? A ballad in Klingon.
In Star Trek Online. Star Trek Online. Yeah. So it's Klingon opera, Klingon acid punk. It's coming up. We should. Yeah. I mean, hopefully they'll actually put that together at some. If nothing else, like in Chicago in next April. Yeah. Maybe we'll have Mary sing some Klingon acid punk. That would be a lot of fun. I would be down for it.
Awesome.
But anyways, yeah. So they pick up Dr. Ta'ana's thing, which turns out to be a scratching post sort of thing, like a hand-me-down scratching post.
This is the first time we get Cation, like real Cation information.
Yeah,
because
like culture. Yeah.
We've known about Maress, her name.
Mm-hmm.
There is the kind of unofficial bio that they did around the same time, but there's never been any kind of.
And she was in the comics too for. Amount too.
Yeah, but I mean canon on screen.
Yeah, gotcha.
Information, I guess. So now this is technically, part of their lore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have hand-me-down scratching posts. But yeah, no, that was really funny in that bit. But obviously, Mariner having fun breaks it.
Oh, yeah.
So they go
She's
off.
like, ew, don't, she touched this. Horny grandma touched it.
Yeah. So they go off to a bar on a starbase to try and get it fixed, and it costs a lot of money, so they have to play some games against some Nausicaans, kind of clearly referencing Tapestry, the episode where Picard got stabbed in the heart as a cadet by Nausicaans. What I liked, okay, so here's my nerd out bit that I really liked about this, and I don't know if it was, I believe it was here. Yeah, there's like a reference to the fact where like, oh, she's using her pheromones to trick them because she's Orion. I believe the Nausicaans mentioned that, which this is something that I was always excited about because this is the weird like little tidbit of information from Star Trek Enterprise that never gets referenced again. And I was like, I've always like wanted it addressed because it's kind of messed up. But in Star Trek Enterprise, the Orion episode of that show, where we learn that Orion women who have been seen as slaves actually only pretend to be slaves because they actually use pheromones to control all the men in their society. So actually women are on top. But which has its own, like, it was the writers trying to like fix this problem of like, yeah, we've had slaves in Star Trek for forever and that's kind of messed up. So we'll try and fix it. But then it like has this unintentional thing. It's like, well, now the men are the one unconsenting to sexual things. So it's like not much better. It's kind of still weird and messed up, and like plays into the like trickster women like sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's honestly, it's one of those Star Trek Enterprise things where like they try to fix things and made it much worse. But anyways, I like this little bit because it references that and it actually fixes a little bit of it because they say like Attendee says, I'm not one of those Orions. So there's apparently like different forms of Orions that have the different pheromones. Sort of thing. So that's like a nice little like building out of Orion society and a Star Trek Enterprise continuity fix to a continuity fix. So I was here for it. That's my weird nerdy niche bit of this that I really enjoyed.
Well, it kind of makes sense because I don't think a society would function super well if everybody was like that.
Yeah, you know, Star Trek and world building. It always makes sense, right? Yeah.
But I do love later when we actually hear Orions talking and Mariner jokingly says, "Oh, I'm allergic to pheromones." He goes like, "Oh, I hear you, sister." It's like it's so bad this time of year. Like I just imagine like there's pheromones blowing in the wind everywhere and stuff.
Yeah, it was
that
great.
is crazy.
It was absolutely wonderful. I love that.
And speaking of that scene where they're basically they were fighting or they came to the Nausicaans, and I love the fact that she starts giving the Nausicaans thinks that Tendi cheated because she actually won. And so Mariner's like starting to give this really detailed, like, Starfleet officers don't cheat. And then she's like, Latinum, and just throws the Latinum in their face and they run. Yeah. So I love that she was headed for like a real heartfelt Star Trek speech and just throws money right. Yeah, exactly. And then they run out and they have to go like, you know, they have that kind of heart to heart where Mariner and Tendi, and Tendi has this like, I don't have it as easy as you do. I have this. There's this impression of Orions that we're all pirates and thieves, and she's like, oh, wait, we can get my cousin to fix this. It's like, where is he? Oh, he's a pirate in the thieves' den.
Yeah, it's funny, but I love that because it is starting to do that to like normal or typical Star Trekian thing of like the outsider character alien who like comments on
kind of
discrimination. Like Nog would be the one that I sort of thought.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love that, and that was one of my critiques of season 1 of Lower Decks. In that, Tendi a little less so. Rutherford was more the one that I had more of an issue with, but it was like Rutherford and Tendi were these really interesting cultures and had their own unique quirks, but they weren't really utilized to their fullest. And so I'm really liking that this, like, you're starting to get the sense of like, oh, because Tendi is Orion, she has to like work a little bit harder. She has to work a little bit harder to she feels this burden on her. And so
she's always working. Yeah,
exactly. So I liked that like little piece of added characterization to her and really sort of fleshing her out. It's joking and funny, but also like I think it really adds a lot of like depth to her like excited character because it's like she's always trying to please, and that's something that I super relate to quite a bit. Like I'm somebody who's like I'm always trying to please, and it just proves to me that Tendi is essentially me. So I thought it was like a really quick moment, but it just really it shows me how this is why I love this show so much, because they managed to make things funny and yet also are able to like really have deep character moments at the same time, even though it's just so quick.
And I think sometimes those deep character moments actually land better with the humor. There's something like very natural and less preachy about it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's moment like this. Honestly, this storyline is my favorite episode, like storyline of the season so far. And it's because of moments like that. Yeah.
And I love when there's a couple kind of self-referential to Tawny Newsome when basically they have to go to this thieves' den, and so she is going to basically paint herself green so she looks like she's an Orion.
Yeah, green
she's
face,
just like
essentially.
green. Yeah, basically. Yeah, so she has this sort of like, I don't know if this is actually right. It's like, please don't take any photos of me.
It was really good. It was really good. But yeah, it's like it's a bit messed up.
Yeah.
So.
And but I think my favorite part has to be though when we see Tendy's cousin, and he is hot. I mean, he is just like, he's like Thor, like he's doing iron work.
He literally has
Mjolnir
Mjolnir in his hand.
It was.
But he references this causes Mariner to reference like, oh, I'm always into guys, and I'm into girls, and I'm into non-binary people, which I really really love for
and binars.
Yeah, exactly. For two reasons that I really really love the scene, and I mention it in my overall review of the episode. Number one, first, officially a confirmed canonical bisexual / pansexual lead character in Star Trek. Arguably, you could say Jadzia Dax or Seven of Nine might technically be first, but they weren't really confirmed. You could argue,
and it also wasn't there. It was like a technicality in some ways, at least like Jadzia. I mean,
Jadzia's technicality. I would say
I mean?
Seven of Nine. The writer did technically confirm that she is bi, but it's not like it was like they held hands on screen. It wasn't like officially confirmed.
Yeah.
So this is official confirmation.
In TV language, it's
enough. Yeah. In queer coding, it's enough. But
yeah,
it's disappointing for its own reasons. But that's my own frustrations with Star Trek Picard aside. I love this. This is official confirmation. It's stating it, and it's doing it well. And then the next thing is I really love that she mentions non-binary people. I think she says non-binary babes, but it's like referencing non-binary people as people and not like aliens. And so she says binars, which is great, but like non-binary, she like mentions non-binary people.
I think that was
as
more
people.
part of the joke. Just
No, I know, but it's subtle. But I have to state, like, I know it's subtle, but it's so important because in Star Trek, non-binary people have typically been coded outside of Star Trek Discovery. Non-binary people have typically been coded as alien other rather than just existing as ourselves.
Well, they've been aliens, basically.
Exactly. And so I just really, I like that it's small, it's subtle, it's not a big deal, but I appreciated it very much. It meant a lot to me. Officially confirmed bisexual character is awesome.
I was originally hoping that maybe Rutherford would be a bisexual because the way in Crisis Point they had painted the hologram to like the way he felt about Billups, but
I could honestly
that also was a hologram. So who knows?
I could see that. I could also see Rutherford being asexual. Interestingly enough, but we'll see.
Yes,
like not a romantic, definitely not a romantic, but maybe asexual. So.
No.
So,
yeah.
But anyways,
so that was awesome.
Yeah.
And of course that went completely south, and they also the scratching post kept getting more and more destroyed as time went on. There's like,
and yet
somebody sees her hand change color and then realize that Mariner is
faking it,
human.
Yeah. And so they try to escape, but they lose the scratching post. Tendi decides to let the scratching post drop.
They have to go climb up with ropes up to a tower that has the ship, I think, on top of.
Mm-hmm. But they escape, they become better friends, they sort of like confirm like, hey, they have that sort of heart-to-heart moment where Tenny says like, I try to please other people, and Mariner's like, I don't really like let myself get close to people because I feel like I get abandoned. Again, good character moments, good character building, I really loved that. But then there's the really great moment where she's like attacking, she's like, I'm gonna do this for you, friendship, and she like rams the shuttle pod into the ship.
This morning you were my colleague, now you're my friend. Ramming speed. I just love the fact that what's happening, we'll get to that, but there's other stuff happening on the bridge, and the captain just looks over and it's like,
what is
Captain,
happening?
The shuttle is coming straight at the ship. Like, what is going on? Just like this incredulous, and it like flies, and it goes, doink. It just sort of bounces off the shield.
My favorite's like, damage report? None, sir. Yeah.
that was weird.
That's great.
And her idea is that basically she's going to make it look like, oh, the damage to the scratching post happened when the shuttle bumped into and the excuse was that there was a bee in the shuttle.
Yeah, of course, which gets her sent to the brig, which is great.
Right, yeah, because which is funny because what Jack was saying is like, how did a bee get into a shuttle in space?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the bee could have been in there when they took off. I mean,
It's
silly,
true,
but,
yeah, it's possible.
yes.
But anyways,
Send the bee to the brig.
exactly. So and it turns out that everything's all fine because T'Ana didn't really want the scratching post. She just wanted the box, which was just be wondering is like why she couldn't just
Very
have
cat-like.
gotten a box from anywhere. But what are you gonna do? But good.
Maybe it was the box that she loved when she was younger or something like that. Maybe it's
yeah.
some specific box.
Maybe it's your sex box. I'm not, no judgment.
But I love when she kind of crawls into it and then you just see her tail kind of inside of her office. And
yeah, the guy in the
science
front is just
officer
like, what?
like
This is uncomfortable.
just sort of looks over the other side. That was great.
So that was wonderful. So we want to
Yes.
jump to the.
That was a really good main plot line.
Easily. This is best one of the season so far. Best plot line of the season so far. Definitely up there for overall of the show. It's not better than like Crisis Point, I think, which is still my number one of the show so far. But it's definitely up there.
Yep.
So.
Definitely. Next plot line, your choice.
Let's go with Rutherford because I feel like that's where we're gonna have the most negative stuff to say, and then we can end on Boimler, which has some of the more positive stuff. So. Okay. Well, we'll compliment sandwich this bitch. All right, so Rutherford. So beginning of the episode, Rutherford they're all in the 10 Forward Cafe thing. I don't know if it's called 10 Forward or whatever, but the Cerritos Cafe.
It needs a name.
Yeah, it needs something.
The Cerritos Cafe.
The bar or whatever.
Yeah.
And Rutherford notices that Shaxs is back. So just randomly, Shaxs is back. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but just to sort of get into what this plot line essentially is Rutherford basically is kind of freaking out because obviously Shaxs died, saving his life, and so now he just kind of like has this obsession with knowing how he came back. He just needs to know, but apparently like, bridge crew members come back all the time, and people don't really tell them, because presumably it's because they're ensigns, and ensigns aren't on a need-to-know basis. So
right.
We'll get into how this plays out, and I have more positive things for how this plays out. But how do we feel about Shaxs coming back?
I feel like it really undid the emotional impact of his death in the finale.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you.
So I had a online conversation with Mike McMahon, and I kind of said that basically. It's like, hey, and he says, one, you don't always know what's going to land with people, so you don't know what's going to impact them. Like, I feel like nobody really realized the impact that having giant Spock skeleton was going to have. That seemed to have much more, like, people were more weirded out by it than I expected. I expected to be weirded out by it because that's just my thing, but everybody was just like, wow, that's dark.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty dark. I mean, I thought it was funny, but it was definitely dark funny, but I'm dark like
right.
that.
So he said this is something he had been planning since like before the show started, because this always happens. You have like strange things happen, and the people who are ensigns or just in the background, they aren't aware of what we're the audience aware of like, oh, it's a transporter clone, it's a whatever. It's like, to them it's just bizarre, and they don't ever get to know why. So he said, since this show is not upper decks, it's lower decks, we have to have it from their viewpoint. And that's a quintessential part of the Star Trek experience of having, some random person come back to life, or a copy or whatever show up.
And I get that, and I like so here's my thought on it, and this kind of gets into, we'll talk about some of the specifics, but this gets into how this resolves for me, because part of how this resolves is kind of tied into how I feel this. My feeling on it is, I agree with you. I do feel like it undercuts the emotion, because I really feel like one of the things that I really liked about the finale and his death was it really made Lower Decks feel like, while this is a comedy show, it feels like a show with stakes. It feels like a show that earns stuff and sticks with it. And doing this, and then this has been kind of the case this whole season, where things have been slowly resetting back to the status quo of the end of season 1 to a degree. And while the emotional through lines have been continuing forward, I've been enjoying that. And I enjoy that Rutherford actually has like kind of trauma about like seeing Shaxs back, and that actually plays in this episode. So I really love that they carry forward the emotional continuity and the emotional stakes of this. But the show is slowly like resetting the stakes of the physical stakes of everything, and doing this I feel like really kind of cheapens that. And it was something that
Boimler's back, Shaxs is back.
Yeah, and things with Mariner kind of back to normal with stuff, and so it just kind of disappoints me a little bit because it's like. One of the things that I really loved off of season 1 was like this was a show that like was funny, was light, but yet still seemed to have stakes, and yet it seems to be kind of going back on that. That being said, the emotional stakes, I think they nail the emotional stakes with their characters spot on, and that I will give them credit for.
Yes,
but this I think undercuts it.
Yeah.
And while I get I actually understand Mike McMahon's argument there that you were sort of saying that like this is like a meta commentary on like characters coming back and not having that, and that's actually I think a smart sort of commentary. That's actually a really cool idea. I think you could have done that by like killing a character and coming back like in the episode, rather than undoing this like big impact. But I also understand like him not understanding that the Shaxs death would, because this season was written while Lower Deck season 1 wasn't even out yet. So like not understanding that was going to have that big of an impact, but also. Yeah. The thing that gets me is...
And the question is, did it have that big of an impact, or was it just how we feel?
I feel like a lot of people really hit on it. Like, I feel like a lot of people really felt the emotion of that. Like, I remember, like, even I watched this show with a friend. It seems like it, yeah. I watched a show with a friend who doesn't care about Star Trek really at all. And she was, like, kind of tearing up at that death. It was a really strong... I thought it was really strong. And speaks to the emotional core that the show is really able to deliver on, even in short bursts. Like they can do a character arc really well in short bursts. But anyways, but the thing that gets me with the commentary is the way that this ends. Is they basically learn that Rutherford basically learns that the reason that they don't learn the truth about these events is because they're trying to protect the ensigns. Like Shaxs is like, we're trying to protect you from the dark secrets that come with coming back to life, and like goes on this big explanation, which to me doesn't feel like it's really that big of a meta commentary, if that makes sense. Because like if you watch other episodes of Star Trek or like other moments where characters come back in like other fictions, it's never this like, oh, it's this dark fight with death and this like weird trauma. Like it's like the only traumatic like
unless it's Buffy.
Yeah, like Buffy had that.
Like Buffy, she was basically pulled back from being
and she remembered in
had this. Yeah. So I mean that kind of stakes make sense, but I don't ever like. I agree with you. It's like I don't feel like that ever was kind of telegraphed in Star Trek that much.
Yeah, and so like while the trauma part of it makes sense because like him like having trauma of coming back, like that mirrors like Culber in Discovery and like even Picard coming back from the Borg. Like there's elements of that.
Right.
That they're in like in this whole like him having trauma, but the revelation that like they don't tell the lower deckers because it's like some sort of like protecting them from this dark secret stuff, that doesn't feel like it's really commenting on anything pertinent to fiction, if that makes any sense. It doesn't feel like it's as smart a critical commentary as the show is usually good at doing, and so I feel like bringing him back cheapens his death for a commentary that is not as pointed or as strong as it ultimately could be.
Yeah, no, I agree. It feels like his dark secret was more like the Bajoran afterlife or something like that, more than anything that was applicable to like everybody or that situation in general. There was a good scene when Rutherford was like imagining what might be, and they basically you get multi versions of Shaxs. That was all these different things.
That was a great scene. I did enjoy that. And the Enterprise, like they get the Neelix one. You had a whole bunch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we have a mirror version of him, a Borg. I love this one. A microscopic civilization brought me back to life and uses my body as a power source for a tiny Dyson sphere. So that was hilarious. I love that. There's one where he was in Neelix's uniform, probably Moriarty's costume. There's the transporter accident version. There's a TOS uniform. There's an Enterprise uniform, which we actually finally get to see.
Hell yeah.
There's something with the Nexus. Yeah. And there's little bits and pieces of audio you can which I can't wait to actually freeze when we get the version with the subtitles. I would love to have the screeners have subtitles. Where you hear it's always Christmas in the Nexus, and the other one's like, what was? Yeah, that was great. My favorite though is, I know that you will love this, is what was the deal with Depaul's haircut?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, the better question, honestly, Depaul has weird haircuts, but Janeway's the one. Janeway's hair was always the one that concerned me because it changed episode to episode.
They were more worried about Janeway's hair than her script half the time. It seems like the behind the scenes information.
Oh
yeah. Because they had to reshoot the first 3/4 of the first episode of because they just we're gonna have her hair be different.
Yeah, there's one episode where her hair changes in mid scene. It's weird. It's just insane. But yeah, so
I love when she got to have 1996 hair.
Yeah, it was great.
And she kept it. She kept the little thing in it for a while afterwards. So it was kind of
it was fun. But yeah, no. So yeah, I ultimately not super high on this storyline, but that scene was great.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Do you want to move on to?
And and like you said, his emotional trauma was really spot on.
Yeah, exactly. Again, as much as I can say about this show rolling back some of the physical stakes, the emotional stakes have always stayed on point so far. So I can't knock that. They handle anything. The emotionality of what the characters go through stays, and I like that. So. Yeah. So this one gets us our big cameo. Finally, we get to have Tom Paris and Robert Duncan McNeil back as Tom Paris, which I really like. The trailer, the season 2 trailer that they showed didn't spoil. They showed that Tom Paris was going to come back as the Plate, but they didn't show that he was going to physically be visiting the Cerritos.
I like
which
that.
Is great. It was awesome to see him actually come on.
So what's really fun is just following everybody on Twitter. One of the writers said that, we kept that a secret by showing in the trailers that Plo Koon from Star Wars was going to be the one. So you just see Tom Paris standing in the turbo lift, but it's the head on top of it.
Yeah.
And my response was, that's not a Star Wars character. That's just a Drayman from the Albatross, the animated series, with a scary mask. And it looks surprisingly like that. Yeah. And so he responded, canon.
It's great. It's absolutely great. Love it. But yeah, so he's all excited, wants to get his plate signed by Tom Paris, which he also references Voy. He calls it Voy. Voy. By the way.
Yeah.
Which is the abbreviation that a lot of people call the Star Trek show. Which, by the way, after TOS and Voy, I want to ask Mike McMahon, if you ever get the chance, does he actually say the names of those abbreviations? Voy? Does he say Voy or Disnin or Tunga? Because, I always said TOS,
it would have to be VGR.
I always said VOY. Yeah. I always said DS9. I never said Tunga.
I know some people who say TOS, but I always say TNG or TOS, or I just say it as I wouldn't say TAS for the animated series. That would just be weird.
Yeah, I really want to ask him that. Just do you say Tunga? Do you say for Next Generation? Ent? Do you say Ent for Enterprise?
Ent? Oh yeah. Disc for Discovery.
Or Pick for Picard.
Oh yeah. Pickard.
But anyways, what I like about this storyline, speaking of emotional through lines, is there's a glitch going on in the ship that Boimler is not recognized by the ship, which is really, really funny. Yes. But we start to learn as he's trying to get to Tom Paris, get to the bridge to have everything signed. He's crawling through the turbo lifts or through the Jeffries tubes. He says where do I belong? And you get the sense that this is him feeling out of place because he doesn't really know where he's supposed to be at the moment because of everything that happened to him last episode, which is again.
And he's also a duplicate now, or the original, one of the two. It's it would be weird to know that there's another version of you not that far away doing basically the same thing.
Exactly.
You're upstaged by yourself. It's weird.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like, again, emotional continuity in the show is very strong, and so I like the humor being used to tell strong emotion.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that he when he tries to get food in the very beginning, they finally the replicator finally gives him something. It's a bonsai tree. He's just wanders away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it's like, and Jet at one point says, hey, you know, do you want me to carry you across the threshold like a bride? He's like, no, I can do this myself. And then so Jet goes through, and then he goes to go in, and it just snaps his finger. He's like, oh, ow, 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 ow.
Mm-hmm.
So great physical comedy on top of that, too, because it's like you totally know what that would feel like. And I know that we've had Better Off Ted jokes before, so this feels a little bit like the one where the elevator wasn't recognizing people.
Yeah.
Let
I
them
love
in.
that episode. Great episode. Better Off Ted is a great show, by the way. People should watch that.
Yes.
But anyways, so he's stuck in the Jeffries tubes, and he has to use the plate. He starts hallucinating Tom Paris, the plate, talking to him. We get a couple scenes on the bridge with Tom Paris, like saying, like, "Don't get us lost in the Delta Quadrant." With
Oh yeah,
Captain Freeman.
Freeman
says that. And eventually,
I would have liked him to say like, I've never heard that one before.
yeah, exactly. And then Boimler gets all high on the fumes and starts to look like a Kazon, and eventually uses the plate to break out and land on the bridge. And Tom Paris sees like Kazon, which is great.
Because his hair does look, it was like totally all like teased up, and his dirty face.
Oh yeah, the trash bag Klingons.
That was great.
That's how I always describe Klingons is trash bag, or Kazon's trash bag Klingons.
Oh yeah. I love that they brought that back. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. And so Boimler gets beat up by Tom Paris, but then gets to go out for drinks with him later on and gets a black eye as like a nice little consolation prize. Just like, I got beat up by Tom Paris. Hell, I'd be proud of that. So.
Yeah, once Mariner's just like, yeah, not many people can say that. They've been beat up by Tom Paris, which is great. Because it feels like a little dig at Tom Paris at the same time.
Exactly. That's true, actually. I didn't even think about that.
My favorite line happened in that scene, where he turns around and he walks to the door and it doesn't open. He's like, no. And Tendy's like, that's not a door. That's a wall with a seam.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, I might have a concussion. Just like walks away. But I just love the fact, because there are those walls that look like they should be doors, but they're not, and it's just,
that's true.
I think that's hilarious.
No, that's actually great. It's a good little nod, because it's just like weird modular design sort of thing. That basically wraps up the episode with the only other thing is like Tendy and Mariner are like picking out acid punk albums together, which is kind of fun. So
at the end, and if I was like. If last week hadn't happened, I probably would have taken the time to write down the Klingon characters, translate it, and tell you what they said. I'm not doing that. Let someone else do that.
Fair. I
know that it probably is accurate and real Klingon words on there. Someone else can figure it out.
Fair, totally fair. So yeah, ultimately for me, I really, really loved this episode. The Shaxs stuff aside, I was setting that aside. Everything else was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And even the Shaxs bit had a few good jokes and scenes in it that I thought were really great. I'm disappointed with the way Shaxs returned, and I thought it was kind of cheap. But ultimately, overall, I think this was probably the strongest episode of the season so far.
So I think that's about it for this week. Just want to mention that we are also sponsored by Fansets. So if you want to get a pin or something that, Lower Decks, there's Tendi, there's all the different characters, which is great. I'm wearing right now my Lower Decks comm badge. You can get a discount if you use the full word DRAWN, all caps, 10% off everything, including a gift card or anything. So Fansets has always been really good to us, so be good to them.
My Fansets, do it now.
Do it. Yes, they have a badge program, which is cool because pretty much anything that has been a badge, I think eventually is going to be purchasable. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Here for it. I mean, hey, merchandise it. That's the Star Trek way. Commodify everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, this season in Lower Decks, everything has a Starfleet Delta on it. I feel like they've doubled down on putting deltas on everything, which makes a lot more sense than in Discovery.
Yeah, true, fair, very fair.
Which was why is there Discovery? What is it? Why is there a symbol on your face? Or it's you'll remember what Starfleet killed you for the 4 seconds you're alive before you die.
It's our
that's the
murder
Starfleet
branding.
way.
It's murder branding. It's fine.
Murder branding. There you go. That's got to be the name of this episode. Murder branding. It's found at the very last end.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh
my god.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. I'm going to let Jessie rest her voice because she's still coming back from that. I am just ready to fall over anyway because of the day. So we will catch you next time, and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Don't you give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute!
Damage report?
None.
That was weird.